Hi, I'm Pam Stevens, and I'm the Training and Operations Consultant for PureFUN, and we're going to talk today about what happens when you have a kid in your class who has a high activity level, and a few things you can do to make the days go a little bit more smoothly. Number one, this is a child who's going to be busy. Their hands are going to be busy, a lot of their body will be busy a good part of the day. So your options are to kind of help steer the direction the child is going, or to leave him to his own devices, and that probably won't go as well. I think as teachers sometimes what we hope the option is that we can make them not be so busy, that we can keep them, all of a sudden turn a very active child into a very calm child. That's not realistic. So number one, again, you want to keep that child busy yourself. You want to control the energy to a certain degree and kind of help steer it in the right direction. That can look like a couple things, like during transition time when you're moving down the hallway from one activity to the other. This may be the child who carries the roll for you or carries the first aid kit, who has busy hands, because if his hands are not busy going down the hall, his hands will be all over the wall or tearing down artwork as he goes down the hall, just because he's a busy kind of guy. In circle time, that could possibly look like him sitting beside you and being the page turner while you're trying to read a story, just so that he has something to do. He knows that he's going to get to move in a minute, those kinds of things. Another thing to keep in mind is this is a child you're going to have to plan the transitions for. If it's time to wash hands before lunch, this is the child who probably needs to go last and stay busy up until it's his turn to be at the sink and washing his hands, or go first and then moving right into another activity. He doesn't need to go from washing his hands to standing in line waiting for everybody else to wash their hands to move on to lunch. Or he doesn't need to be last in line washing his hands while everybody else is washing. Again, you keep him busy up until the moment where it's his turn. Now, eventually, you're probably going to want to teach this child how to wait a little bit. He has a high energy level, but he's at some time needs to learn about coping with like standing in line and waiting. So that may be that he is the second last to wash his hands, stays busy until there's only one child in front of him, goes to the sink, and then you teach him, while you're waiting for your turn, you can try to stand on one foot for as long as you can. And then when that gets too hard, then try standing on the other foot, just one at a time. You just give him something to do to help occupy his time, because he will occupy his time one way or the other. And what you want to do is kind of teach him some ways to do it that he can live with and you can live with in the classroom. Another idea is, make sure your group times are short enough that he or she can manage during those times. For children with a very high activity level, long group times just don't work. So if you have a child or more than one child in your class like that, plan to have your large group times to be fairly short. Now, we want to meet the needs of all the children in our classroom. So at the same time, you may have kids in the class who are really ready for a longer group time and want to sit and listen to longer stories or do more activities during group time. An idea for that is to have an optional longer group time for them, which would mean, you have your regular group time where maybe you sing a good morning song and you talk about what you're going to do today, and let the kids know, I'm going to stay here and I'm going to read another story. Whoever would like to stay can, and if you don't want to, you can go on and choose a center. There will be some kids who actually want to stay with you because you're there and they love spending time with you. Or it could even be, if it's a real high interest activity, I'm going to stay here and do a science experiment. Whoever wants to stay can, but if you're ready to leave, you can leave as well. That actually works. And that way kids aren't in trouble and forced to stay when they can no longer sit. You want to also, for the child who is really, really busy and has a lot of energy, often during center time, they tend to wander. They have a hard time staying with one activity. A good idea is to offer some limited choices. If you see the child wandering or just moving from one thing to another, try to find a couple things that you think would really interest him and say, would you like to do this or this? And help him settle on something, and so to kind of reduce that wandering behavior. You also need to make sure there are plenty of high interest and high, just really, really stimulating activities for the kids. Your kids with a very high energy level do not have the impulse to control to do something that doesn't just really grab them. They're going to not be able to pay attention to that. So you make sure that things that you're planning for the kids in all the group times and in the centers. There's variety and there's a lot of interest there, because that's what's going to keep him engaged and be able to help him be able to control his impulses. And also it's a good idea to define physical space for these guys. A cube chair in circle time, or, for the area where you line up to leave the classroom to go outside or to go to lunch or to the restroom or whatever, to have some cutouts of feet on the floor and laminated and stuck on the floor, so he knows exactly where to put his feet. This is my spot. This is where I stay. Is also a good idea. Again, the most important thing to remember is that you're probably not going to change who the child is, or what his personality is, or how he approaches things. If this is a child, again, who has a lot of energy, a real mover, you have to work with that. And so it takes a lot of planning, but once you kind of get ahead of it and you know what he's going to do, or what his preferences are, you can really channel that energy into something good and positive in the classroom. If you want to talk more about this, or you have questions, please go to our website, PureFUNinc.com, and click Ask an Expert, and we can talk back and forth about that. Bye.